This is my vow. I will serve the best way I know how. On the ground, where the people are confused and bound, I will always try my best. For this is my vow. This is my vow.
Hello, lovely people. I hope that you're having a wonderful day. It is a really beautiful day here, and I am excited to be with you. The reason that I wanted to open up with that song today was because of what we're going to read in the book of Noah. But first, let us start off with prayer. God and Goddess, I thank you so much for this lovely day and for safe travels and for all the blessings that you continue to give us. Thanks so much for the fellowship yesterday and getting to share an amazing Thanksgiving meal with beautiful, lovely vegan people and all of the fun getting to plant some seeds. Thank you so much for all of that. Please help us to remember the good times in the midst of the bad and love and care for our fellow brothers and sisters and help us to become the best versions of ourselves possible. In the name of Elohim, I pray. Amen. Today, on the Nazarean calendar, it is Mind Day, and the prayer is, Our God and Goddess, immanent and transcendent, send to all your angel of peace. To all the helpful thoughts of my mind, send your angel of power. It can definitely be hard to control our minds, and yeah, I have been having some of my own personal struggles, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to read the book of Noah, because it's relatable and encouraging at the same time. It's also really, really exciting. It's different than the mainstream story that you have heard. And so without further ado, let us just jump right into it. This is from the Holy Megillah, the Nazarean Bible of the Essene Way, translated by Day of Greenleaf and available at essene.org. In the Old Testament is what we would probably label it as, that have come from mainstream Christianity. It has all these Old Testament stories, and then of course they have the Holy God spell, or the Holy God spell, and that is the actual gospel of Lord and Lady Christ. So in the book of Noah, this is available in that free PDF as well if you want to read along. It is starting off in chapter 1. Behold, many generations had passed since the raising of the holy mount in the center of the Garden of Eden to become the center of El Cush. Yea, many generations had passed since the ascension of the great Nazarean patriarchs and matriarchs. Lo, for many generations, the Nazareans were in dispersion, being persecuted without mercy by the Cainites. For though Cain had long since perished in battle, his armies still ravaged the world. Yea, not only the Cainites, but many nations of degenerated mankind waged war on the Nasareans until the holy ones were nearly extinct. Then, out of sight due to their small numbers, the remaining Nasareans were mostly forgotten, while the large nations waged war upon one another. Yea, much time passed. Lo, the wars became increasingly cruel and wicked, as Lucifer, with his seraphim generals, taught the people the black arts of warfare. Yea, they taught the art of making deadlier weapons, and provided the means to do so. And they made giant and ferocious soldiers by mating seraphim with the daughters of man. And these soldiers were birthed in glass tubes like Cain, for no human womb could birth such big babies. Even Lucifer, though no longer of natural flesh, mated with a human woman. For in the time when he was still of flesh, which was long before he came to our world, he preserved his seed for this purpose, that he might seed many worlds. In his seraphim, some a mix of flesh and metal, some entirely artificial, did likewise at his command. Lucifer mated with Lilith, a daughter of Cain who enjoyed drinking human blood. She was loathsome and wicked, and her son by Lucifer was named Sargon, and Sargon was evil incarnate. And with his mate Lilith, Lucifer claimed the title of Elohim. So now he was the false claimant of two holy names, Yahweh and Elohim. Yea, he was a false god, and his queen was no goddess. And he loved her not, but respected her evil, and used her and other women to create bloodlines by which he would rule this world. Yea, he mated with other women of many races, that his seed would encompass the planet. Obviously, we know that we live on a plane. This is all taking place inside of the mother ovum. But Lilith was his first and favorite wife, and he let her kill the others after they bore him children. Lo, the children of Lucifer were many, and from his line came many of the great tyrants that scourged the earth. Yea, and from his line will come many future tyrants, even unto the last days. And in various lands Lucifer was known by various names. For behold, the people of various lands now spoke various languages. And many of the peoples had created gods and goddesses in their own image and likeness. Yea, from their own imaginations, they created deities and holy books. And so Lucifer adopted the names of the deities in each land and took over their temples and slew their priests and installed his own priests in their place. Then, keeping some of the outward observances of each religion in place, he altered enough to ensure the corruption of the people to his ways. For behold, all that was needed in a religion to keep the people under his influence was to make animal and human sacrifice the central focus. All else would follow. Sargon was the chief general of Lucifer's human armies, and Sargon was under the command of Shemekhaza, the general of Lucifer's seraphim soldiers. His name means, "My name has been glorified." Sargon taught the people to make swords of metal, helmets, breastplates, shields, and knives. And Shemekhaza taught cruel strategies and the making of poisons and instruments of torture. Artekif, the next in rank of the seraphim to Shemekhaza, taught the mining and melting of metals. Ramtel, the next in rank of the seraphim, taught the art of deforestation for lumber. And he taught how to slash and burn entire forests to make clearings for the raising of meat herds. Wherefore his name means burning ashes. And his work was commended by Lucifer, who declared, "The only good forest is a harvested forest." Lo, some of the arts of warfare were kept secret from the humans for fear that they might rebel against the seraphim. Wherefore Lucifer and his generals lived on an island where they kept their most powerful weapons and means of travel. Behold, they had ships that flew in the air like birds. Some of those ships were small and carried only a few seraphim. But some, like the one that first brought the seraphim to our world, were large enough to carry many. Yea, and the large sky ships could fly amongst the stars. And the seraphim general in charge of the large sky ships was named Kokavel, which means star of God. Maybe Kokavel, Kokavel. And the name of this island was Atalia. And from Atalia came many wonders and abominations. And the palace of the false Yahweh was a castle of black wizardry. Yea, evil smoke circled overhead, foul and toxic to humans. Here they made the small ships to fly in the sky. But behold, only the angels of Lucifer, who were the seraphim, were permitted the knowledge to fly them. And the general of the small flying ships was named Ra-Mael, which means thunder of God. And here is where they made their staffs of fire, like the one that killed Abdiel. And the general for the making of the staffs was named Barak-El, which means lightning of God. And here is where they made their poison gourds that exploded with fire. And the general in charge of the making of the exploding gourds was named Ezekiel, which means fireball of God. Behold, the only humans permitted on Italia were slaves, Canaanite soldiers to guard the slaves, and the wives of and children of Lucifer. Even the children of Lucifer remained on the island only long enough to be trained in the dark arts. Then they were sent to various lands to do the bidding of Lucifer. Evil, yeah. The several thousand slaves were kept for their labor. Lo, the slaves were kept in ignorance and fear. Yea, they believed their masters to be gods, and they had no love for their gods, but feared them. Of all of the foul arts practiced on this island, the foulest of all was that called mixing. Yea, the seed of one creature was mixed with that of another, and parts of this one combined with that one, and the egg of one scripted with the essence of another. Many wicked fruits of this black art now crept the lands, defiling the earth mother, the mother earth. Even the weather of our world was altered, for they seeded the clouds to produce rain and withheld rain from lands they wished to punish. And the general in charge of the manipulation of the weather was named Matrael, which means rain of God. And the Mother Earth herself shook and cried in agony for this interference in her natural cycles, threw all things out of balance. Yea, the sweating slaves, the burning forests, the hunted creatures, the haunted souls, the poisoned soil, the smoky air, the fouled waters, the praying saints, even the rocks and mountains and flowers and grasses, all cried out for liberation from Lucifer. Chapter 2, the incarnation of Isaac as Noah. Then, behold, the time came for the fulfillment of the prophecy spoken by Abraham and Sarah that their son, holy Isaac, would come to earth as their sacrifice. And the time also came for the fulfillment of the words of the Lord and Lady that Lucifer would be banished from the earth. And the story of the fulfillment of those two prophecies now follows. The coming to earth of Isaac as Noah was in this manner. Abraham and Sarah, who lived within the temple of light, which is the seventh heaven and is within the sun, came secretly to earth. Yea, on many occasions they came secretly to earth, but this time their purpose was different. Yea, this time they came to make a baby, for the time of the fulfillment of their words to the Nasareans had come. For lo, many hundreds of years earlier, Abraham had declared these words to the Nasareans. Behold, Lucifer wished for me to sacrifice my son Isaac, and so I will, but not in the manner desired by Lucifer. Lo, rather than aid the work of Lucifer by performing the sacrifice he desired, we will hinder his work by sacrificing Isaac in the manner of the Lord and Lady. Wherefore, though Lucifer now mocks us, Elohim will have the last laugh. For the meaning of Isaac is Elohim laughs. Behold, at a time will come when the Nazarean remnant is in dispersion and in need of help. Yea, there will be many such times, and each time the Lord and Lady and their servants, Abraham and Sarah, will respond by sending teachers and prophets from El Cush. But on one such occasion, behold, Abraham and Sarah will make a special sacrifice. We will send our son Isaac into this world. For Isaac has so requested, and we have agreed. And when he comes as man, he will take a human name. Yea, he will be called Noah, for he will bring comfort to them tossed by the storm that Lucifer will unleash. And when he dies as a man and rises to El Cush, he will serve as the angel of water for the tree of life for this world. And his cherubim name will be Noah El. Behold, the descendants of Noah will be of royal lineage. For when Isaac comes as man, he will carry within him the seed of Abraham and Sarah. For his body will not be birthed by human parents, but by us, and his soul will descend to earth on a beam of sunlight. And as Noah will, for a time, forget his true origin and fall into unseemly pursuits, but will then awaken and ascend, even so will our royal bloodline do likewise. Yea, those are the words spoken hundreds of years earlier by Abraham to the Nazareans. And Sarah had declared unto the same assembly of Nazareans, behold, the atmosphere will grow so heavy in this world that they who come from above to take human incarnation will likely forget who they are and why they came. Only if they regain their memory of their identity and purpose will they be able to accomplish their mission. Lo, some will come here and not awaken before death. Yea, some will be trapped in this world, and some will tumble down the golden ladder to lower worlds. For without memory of their identity or purpose, they may fall into lower activities that cause the contraction of consciousness. And the more they fall, the less likely they will awaken. Wherefore, it is a great risk to leave a higher world for a lower world. Yea, we call that the great sacrifice, and that will be the sacrifice of Isaac. Thus spoke Abraham and Sarah hundreds of years earlier to the Nazareans, and now, behold, the time of the fulfillment of that prophecy was at hand. And so Abraham and Sarah came secretly to earth and conceived a baby, for the soul of Isaac would need to incarnate in human flesh. And at the moment of conception, riding on a sunbeam, the soul of Isaac left the sun. And the sunbeam became the rainbow bridge and took him to earth. And the soul of Isaac entered the humble body of a human embryo. Yea, the wearing of a human body by the soul of Isaac was indeed a step of great humility. For to do so, he stepped out of his cherub body, which was like a glorious robe of light, and came to earth naked. Yea, having shed his glorious robe of light, his naked soul put on the humble robe of human flesh. Behold, this was the crown prince, whom from the seventh heaven, the son of a mighty king and queen, leaving his heavenly palace and royal robes behind on a mission of mercy to a much poorer land. And then, having arrived naked in that land, the prince put on the rags of human flesh. And so it was that the crown prince of the seventh heaven, son of Abraham and Sarah, came to our world. Abraham and Sarah took their baby and placed him at the door of a Nasarean home. Lo, they knocked at the door, then vanished, returning to the sun. For behold, they had performed their act of sacrifice, and now Isaac must perform his. The woman who answered the door was crying, for lo, her baby and husband had that morning been slain. Not for being Nasarean were they slain, for Nazareans were nearly extinct and almost forgotten, but to serve as meat. For great evil had spread throughout the land, and some had embraced cannibalism. For the false Yahweh, who ruled from his palace on the island of Atalia, had long demanded human sacrifice, and now also encouraged cannibalism. Yea, he told his priests, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, that you eat human flesh and drink human blood. For this is the bread and wine of my covenant. Do this in remembrance of me. And so cannibalism had begun to spread throughout the land. For having first eaten animal flesh, it was not so hard to eat human flesh. Wherefore, the woman who answered the door and found baby Isaac was crying. For though she was Nazarene and vegetarian, cannibals had slain and eaten her husband and baby. Finding Isaac on her doorstep, the woman was comforted. She said, I will name you Noah, for you bring me comfort. The woman, whose name was Nechemah, raised Noah as her son. Having lost her husband, she took Noah and went to live in the home of her father, Isaiah. Chapter 3, Isaiah, grandfather and teacher of Noah. Behold, Isaac was the Yair of the Nazarenes, the high priest. Due to severe persecution for many centuries, the Nasarean religion of the Essene way was reduced to a tiny remnant. For many generations, the rule of the Yairs had been to preserve the teachings for the future and to train the faithful few. Meetings were secret and were held in the homes of the brethren and sistren. Traveling teachers visited isolated Nazareans, and the way was preserved. But little evangelism took place, for to preach the way in public was a death sentence. Having been out of the public eye so long, the Nazarenes were mostly forgotten by the world. Even Lucifer thought them extinct. Lo, old Isaiah taught Noah the Essene way of the Nazareans. Never before had Isaac met such an eager and apt student. Yea, by the time Noah was a young man, his level of attainment within the Nasarean church surpassed all the elders except old Isaiah. For behold, the soul of young Noah was an old soul, having reigned as crown prince in the seventh heaven. But think not that Noah remembered his former life as Isaac or his mission to earth from the sun. For lo, he did not remember. For the great sacrifice of them who leave a higher world for a lower world is, as Sarah declared, a great risk. For the atmosphere of a lower world is such that memory of one's origin and purpose is lost at the time of incarnation. And the temptations and dangers in such a world are great. And no soul in such a world is free of the risk of a great fall. And with such a fall, one may spiral downwards to even lower worlds, perhaps never to awaken. Such is the risk that Isaac took in coming to earth. Behold, when Noah turned 21 years of age, Isaiah removed the pendant of Yair from around his own neck and put it around the neck of Noah. Isaiah said, Lo, this night I shall consecrate you as my successor to the office of Yair. For you are worthy, and I am called to a work that will likely lead to my death. For behold, I shall become a missionary, without home, traveling the world. Wherefore, even if I survive longer than I imagine, I will be unable to perform the duties of Yair. Noah began to protest, saying, Your life must be protected. We must keep you safe. Isaiah replied, For many years I have preserved the Nasarean teachings. I have secretly trained others in the way. I have preserved the sacred scrolls. Through secrecy, a remnant has survived centuries of persecution, awaiting a better day when we might practice our religion publicly without penalty of death. Now I am old, and I am called to another work. For behold, I sense that the evil in this world has grown so great that it must be confronted. No longer will I remain in hiding. I am called now to preach to the people of this world. I will boldly declare their predicament. For lo, their predicament is indeed dire. At no time has such greater evil plagued this world. The people must repent or perish. Yea, I will go public, as I am old, and my lifespan is nearly finished. I choose to die preaching. What better way for an old preacher to die? Isaiah chuckled and then sang a song that he composed. For every good thing there is a season. Yea, there is a proper time for everything under the sun. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to follow and a time to lead. A time to learn and a time to teach. A time to eat and a time to feed. A time to plant and a time to harvest. A time to search and a time to find. A time to laugh and a time to cry. A time to build and a time to tear down. A time to march and a time to dance. A time to conceal and a time to reveal. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to wage war and a time to make peace. A time to retreat and a time to act. A time for caution and a time to be bold. A time for guarding and a time for freeing. Yea, and oftentimes, indeed, most times, some of each is needed. A bit of this, a bit of that, One season, a bit more of this, a bit less of that. Another season, more of that, less of this. And the next season, less of that, more of this. And while one man is called to this, another may be called to that. And when timely for one woman to do this, it may be right for another woman to do that. And each should master both. And the wisdom is in when and where, yea, and who and why. And each must follow their heart. Lo, done with his song, Isaiah said, always we Nazareans do some of each. Some do this, some do that, but all in all, we maintain the balance. I have been in retreat, and that was wisdom. Now I wage war, and that war is wisdom for me this season. You, Noah, will not wage war this season, for your time is not at hand. But your time will come, and when it comes, you will know, and there will be no doubt. Then, behold, Isaiah hugged his grandson, holding him to his heart. Noah wept, but offered no more protest to the words of holy Isaiah. For lo, Noah knew that there is a time to speak and a time to listen. And he knew that there is a time to assert and a time to receive. Yea, in humility and gratitude, Noah remained silent in the embrace of Isaiah. Then, when he sensed the proper season, he spoke but 4 words. I love you, grandfather. Yea, Isaiah sensed that his lifespan was near complete. And he also sensed that the people of this world should receive a warning that their misdeeds had brought them to the brink of disaster. For indeed, he sensed that disaster was at hand. Yea, he had a deep sense of foreboding. He felt the earth itself groan in pain, even anger. He felt the fear of the animals, as strange, man-made creatures ran through the jungle. He had seen the warrior giants from Atalia, the result of the mixing of human seed with seraphim. And he knew that this was an abomination against nature of such a scale that nature herself would rebel. Lo, Isaiah himself was of nature, and he would rebel in her name. Yea, and in the name of Jaja and Elohim. He saw eclipse written in the sand. He saw eclipse written on his own face. Yea, he would wage war, but as is the Nasarean way, this war would be nonviolent. He knew within himself that his role would be to warn the people of their own part in this coming Holocaust and to call them to repentance. For he knew that the people had brought this on themselves through their compliance with evil. Yea, many of them enjoyed the evil, and many of them were perpetrators of that evil. Lo, Isaiah would go to the people with a call to repentance. Within himself, old Isaiah knew that Noah would play a part in the coming war, for he had seen it in a vision. But Noah's time had not yet come. On the morrow, Noah was to be wed. Isaiah would perform that wedding. Then he would launch his mission to the people of Yisrael. He would wander the world preaching to the people. The remainder of his life would be as a homeless wanderer, a pilgrim priest for Jaja. For behold, Isaiah's time had come. For 7 years, Isaiah wandered the world. 2 lines of Zion, which are Nasarean soldiers trained in the martial arts of Zion, traveled with him. He spoke words of prophecy to the people and called them to repentance. And in each town, his message was the same. Repent, for the time of reckoning is at hand. The death of Isaiah was in this manner. For 7 years, he had visited towns in various nations, arriving unannounced, delivering his proclamation, then leaving before being arrested. He made friends along the way, people good and true, but he made one false friend. For lo, an informer of the Canaanite soldiers pretended to befriend Isaiah. Yea, and that informer arranged for Isaiah to speak at a certain place and time. And hidden in the crowd, dressed in the garb of farmers and common folk, were 24 Canaanite soldiers with staffs of fire. And when Isaiah arrived and was speaking to the people, they attacked. First, they killed the lions of Zion, then they killed Isaiah. Lo, the lions fought bravely, but the staffs of fire burned holes through them. Isaiah simply smiled and spoke a prayer, for behold, his time had come. Chapter 4, Heartache of Noah. Noah, when he received word of the death of Isaiah, was 28 years of age. He was married and had 2 children, a boy and a girl. His wife was named Simcha, after the ancient Nasarean matriarch of joy. For behold, like Simcha of old, she was ever joyful, even in hard times. She was Noah's second wife, for his first marriage had ended in blessed parting after 1 year. Noah's son was 4 years of age and was named Abdiel after the ancient Nasarean patriarch. And his daughter was 3 and was named Isha after the ancient Nasarean matriarch. Also, Nakama, Noah's mother, lived in the home of Noah. And the love of Noah for his family was beyond measure. Lo, Noah was greatly saddened upon the news of his grandfather's death. For behold, Isaiah had been like a father to him. But Simcha, wife of Noah, comforted him. She said, Holy Isaiah has ascended unto Elcush. Yea, it was his time. Even so, Noah grieved. On account of the small number of surviving Nazareans, even Noah the Yair worked as a farmer to support his family. And the Nazarean mother temple was but a room in his home, where a dozen members or so gathered each week. For to gather in greater number would attract the attention of Canaanite soldiers. And in other regions of this land and other lands, small numbers of Nazareans still survived and gathered each week in houses for congregational worship. Their total number was perhaps a few hundred, but no more than a dozen or so in any town. And for most, their main contact with the mother temple was a monthly epistle written by the Yair. Yea, that epistle was carried and delivered to the scattered congregations by the Nasarean lions, the surviving remnant of Shevet Ariot. That is the tribe of lions. The 12 tribes were actually different work groups, or, the merchants, the farmers, the gatherers, the lions of Zion. Shortly after the death of Isaiah, Noah went into the mountains to fast and pray. In his absence, his wife Simcha, a Nazarean priestess, would lead the weekly service at the mother temple. But lo, while fasting and praying in the mountains, Noah had a feeling that something terrible had happened at home. And so he hiked back down the mountain and returned to his farm. But he was too late. For behold, Canaanites had attacked his home, which was the mother temple, while the weekly gathering was being held. All of the Nazareans present were slaughtered, including Noah's wife and children. All that remained of his family and friends was their charred bones. Noah was devastated. Lo, as Noah bent over the bones of his family, weeping tears of sorrow, more bad news arrived. The leader of the lions of Zion, a prophet named Ezekiel, arrived and informed Noah that this had been a coordinated attack on nearly all of the scattered congregations. Yea, the entire Nasarean movement, already of small numbers, was now mostly extinct. For behold, the public preaching of Isaiah had alerted Lucifer to the continued existence of the Nazareans. And over the 7-year period of Isaiah's public preaching, the Canaanites had managed to infiltrate the Nasarean network and discover the location of most of the weekly meeting places. And now they had simultaneously attacked each of those meeting places, slaughtering most of the remaining Nazareans. Noah was devastated. He knew from his spiritual training that his departed loved ones would ascend to El-Cush, but still he sank into a deep depression. He blamed himself for the deaths of his family and friends. Yea, he blamed himself for the demise of the entire Nazarean nation. For several days he mourned, unable to eat or sleep. Then he went to the camp of Ezekiel and said, I hereby resign the office of Yair. I have no desire to live and am no longer fit to serve. Brushing aside Ezekiel's words of protest, Noah took off his pendant, which was the symbol of the office of Yair, and gave it to Ezekiel. Noah said, "If there be any surviving Nazareans, let them choose another Yair. I am not worthy and hereby resign." Chapter 5, more heartache for Noah. Noah wandered for many months. He walked as fast and far as his legs would carry him. He had no destination but a way. He wanted to be as far away from the painful memories of his burned home as possible. But no matter how far he walked, the memories kept him company. One day in a distant land, he slept in a cornfield. When he awoke, he was hungry. He ate a few ears of corn, and then the owner of the field found him and said, "You ate my corn, so you owe me work. And as it happens, I'm in need of a worker to help me bring in this harvest. Will you help?" Noah helped, and when the work was done, the man said to him, "You are a good worker. If you will stay on, you may have the extra cabin in my land and weekly wages." Noah agreed, for he was tired of aimlessly walking and liked this old man. The old man was named Shammai, and he lived in a large house with his granddaughter and her son. His granddaughter was about the age of Noah. She was a widow, for robbers had killed her husband. Her name was Shemitah, and she had a son, Yozabad, age 4. Shammai, Shemitah, and Yozabad lived in the big house, and next to them, as their hired worker, Noah lived in the small cabin. For many years, Noah lived with these people. He tried not to think of religion or his former life as a priest, for those memories were too painful. Instead, he desired just to be a normal man, to work and to forget. He remained a vegetarian, but began to drink a lot of wine. For lo, the wine helped him forget. He never met any Nazareans and supposed nearly all of them dead. At first, he performed his private devotions, but never spoke of them to his new family. For lo, if they were to become Nazarean, it would mark them for death, as it had his first family. After a couple of years, as he began drinking more and more wine, Noah ceased to keep even his private devotions. For behold, his desire was to be just a man and to forget. After 5 years, Noah married Shemitah. He had no desire himself for marriage, but consented to the plea of Shemitah. For behold, though he desired no happiness for himself in this world, and though Simcha was his one true love, he knew that this marriage would make Shemitah and young Yozabad very happy. And since he cared nothing for his own life, why not make her and the boy happy? After all, he had grown to love them over the years. Why not make them happy? After 7 years, Noah remembered little of his past, and that was on purpose. With the help of the wine, he blocked his former life from his mind. It was just too painful to think about, and now he had a new life. He had succeeded in becoming just a normal man with normal concerns. He was not particularly happy, but he had become successfully numb. From time to time, he would hear tales of the great evil spreading throughout the land. Yea, he would hear of great abominations coming forth from the island of Italia. Sometimes he would even see such things with his own eyes. And he would hear of unthinkable atrocities attributed to the Canaanites and other cannibals. But always he would say, "I am just one man and can do nothing." Then he would drink some wine and try not to think of it. But behold, 7 years after losing his first family, Noah lost his second family. The old man, Shammai, had taken ill. Noah loaded him in a wagon and took him to the nearest town where there was a healer of high repute. The healer revived Shammai. But when Noah and Shammai returned to their farm, lo, they found it burned to the ground. And Shemitah and Yozabad were dead victims of the Canaanites. Old Shammai took one look at their bodies and then dropped dead of a heart attack. Noah decided he no longer wished to live. Having lost 2 families and many friends to violence, His will to live was gone. He had suffered too much pain in his life, and his grief was unbearable. Even his attempt to be just a normal man had failed. This world was too evil to live in. Behold, he would go jump off a cliff. He grabbed a flask of wine that survived the fire and then walked into the mountains. He came to a high cliff overlooking a river. He decided to drink the flask of wine and then jump off the cliff. He drank the entire flask of wine, but instead of throwing himself over the cliff, he lay down on his back and gazed up at the stars. He asked, "Who am I?" He wondered, "What is my purpose?" He moaned, "I feel that I have gone astray." He prayed, "Jaja and Elohim, reveal to me the meaning of my life. For if the meaning of my life is not but the lesson of losing all who I hold dear, I will quit life. But if there is some purpose for my life besides the pain and heartbreak, let it be revealed. Yea, if you can use me, as pitiful as I have become, to do any good in this evil world, use me. Forgive me for straying from the path in my despair. I wish I were stronger, but I am weak, and now I am broken." Then he contemplated the stars and fell asleep. Chapter 6, Noah's Dream. That night Noah dreamed. He dreamed that he was a prince in a kingdom of great beauty, prosperity, and peace. On the day that he was to become an adult and inherit a share of the kingdom, his father, the king, and his mother, the queen, called him to them. His mother said, "Beloved son Isaac, what do you desire as a gift on this day that we celebrate your birth?" The prince replied, "I desire to have my peace restored. For behold, I have spent the morning gazing into the crystal lake. I saw in the lake a vision. Lo, I beheld at the bottom of the lake a world. And I perceived that this world was once a beautiful garden. But a spoiler came and scattered evil seeds. He harmed the garden and deceived the children of the garden. Great pain spread throughout the garden, and the children cried for help. Truly, this vision had disturbed my peace. For lo, as I gazed into the lake, my peace left me, becoming a tear of compassion. And this tear rolled down my cheek and landed in the crystal lake. And then it became a white pearl. And the pearl of peace sank to the very bottom of the lake and entered the spoiled garden. And there a wicked serpent, the spoiler, prevented the children of the garden from receiving my pearl. Yea, the serpent stole it and used it not, but prevented others from using it. Wherefore I am no longer in peace, for I must go to this world and find my pearl." The king said, "My son, you were privileged to be born into great prosperity and privilege. For behold, you are the son of a king and queen. In truth, you could not have been born into such a privilege had you not earned it in previous lifetimes. For none are born in this kingdom that have not earned it. Nevertheless, if you feel called to dive into the lake and swim to the bottom in search of the pearl of peace, you have our blessing. For lo, we ourselves planted that garden, and we were greatly saddened when the serpent attacked and spoiled the garden. And we ourselves had visited that kingdom and will again until the day of salvation of that garden. Wherefore, according to your will, your birthday gift shall be a holy mission. Go to the kingdom at the bottom of the lake, find your lost pearl, and return with it." And so the prince, taking off his royal robes, dived naked into the crystal lake. He swam downward until he reached the kingdom of the spoiled garden. When he arrived there, nobody could see him or talk to him, for he was naked and could not be seen. Wherefore he put on a robe like unto that worn by the people of this kingdom. When he donned that heavy robe, which was not light like the one he was used to, he felt tired and sleepy. Lo, the air of this kingdom made him feel drunk and dizzy, and the food made him very forgetful. Soon he had forgotten who he was and why he had come to this garden of the spoiled garden. When he spoke, the people understood him not. Lo, they knew from his accent that he was a foreigner, and they mocked him. Wherefore he learned to speak the language of these people, that he might be understood. Then, as luck would have it, an old man who has also come to this world from the blessed kingdom above recognized the origin of the young man. Happy to find a kinsman in this spoiled garden, the old man tutored the boy. The boy learned much and was on the verge of remembering his origin when the serpent killed the old man. The young man was the best of the men in the spoiled garden. He knew more, he loved more, he helped more. But he was still a man of the spoiled garden. For though he knew about the higher worlds and taught about the higher worlds, he had not yet remembered. But he was close. Then a tragedy struck. The wife and children of the young man were killed in a terrible fire set by the serpent. Rather than stay and fight the flames that threatened to engulf the entire world, the young man sank into despair and fled. The young man was heartbroken and sank into deep depression. He forgot about remembering and lost himself in worldly pursuits. After some years, he remarried. Then again, tragedy struck. Again, his family was killed in a fire. Again, rather than fight the flames that threatened to engulf the entire world, rather than bringing water to the homes of those who would next be attacked, rather than confront the arsonist and cast him into prison, he fled in despair. This time he ran to the edge of a very high cliff. He jumped off the cliff and fell toward the ground, seeking the death that he hoped would release him from his deep sorrow. But before the man in Noah's dream hit the ground, Noah awoke from his dream. Chapter 7, The Awakening of Noah. Yea, still lying on his back by the edge of the cliff where he had fallen asleep and dreamed, Noah awoke to a golden sunrise. Yea, Noah awoke to the sound of a dove singing in his ear. Lo, Noah sat up and opened his eyes and ears, and behold, the dove sang him a song. And this is the song she sang, called Hymn of the Robe of Glory. In the house of Jaja, the mother Ovum, are countless world chains, each of 7 heavens. The 7th heaven of each world chain is a hidden chamber within a blazing star. Above this world of earth is a star called the sun. Its hidden chamber is a spiritual core. Not of fire, not of heat, but of celestial light is the spiritual core within the body of the sun. Behold, a celestial realm of love and delight beyond comprehension of mortal mind. Bet HaShefa, house of influx, crown of this world chain, the 7th heaven. Home of holy cherubim, those of Shekel Mufla, servants of Jaja and Elohim wearing robes of light. From heaven most high, abode of Jaja and Jala, into the 7th heaven flows the river of light. The Nahara, Jaja's river of light, enters the 7th heaven and the crowns of all therein. Shekel, Shefa, Nivdal makes the cherubim glow, and from their shimmering crowns they stream light below. Into the crown of each creature in each world below, from the 7th heaven, the Nahara does flow. Behold, the 7th heaven and the cherubim within, ruled by Abraham and Sarah, placed there by Elohim. Abraham and Sarah, cherubim king and queen, gave birth to a baby. Isaac was his name. Abraham and Sarah, crown prince Isaac by their side, visited the world called earth, over which they preside. Disguised as humans they were, and treated poorly indeed. Of angelic help they saw, this world was in need. A garden of Eden this world once was, first home of first heaven, bed of Adam and Eve's love. But Lucifer attacked, and first heaven was razed. Now Elohim and cherubim this world work to save. Prince Isaac was moved by compassion to say, Mother, Father, please send me to this poor world someday. Then to the Nasareans assembled, Abraham and Sarah prophesied. A promise they made of a great sacrifice. A sacrifice profound of their firstborn son, Crown Prince Isaac, to this world would come. A day in the future when darkness reigns, a day of despair when hope seems vain. The Nasarean remnant, battered, nearly extinct, Luciferian experiments bring mankind to the brink. The great sacrifice of Isaac is made. His cherubim body aside has been laid. Yea, in seventh heaven the robe of light lain, a robe immortal, without spot, without stain. Yea, the glorious robe of immortal light, the royal garment of cherubim delight. The robe of the royal cherubim prince, exchanged for a robe mortal and dense. On a beam of sunlight to the world called earth, the crown prince came to take human birth. Abraham and Sarah, an earth body prepared for the soul of Isaac, whose sacrifice they shared. For they gave earth their firstborn son, who in forgetfulness the immortal way may shun. Who in this world, dense from the fall, risks his immortal life due to compassion's call. At risk of forgetting who he is, why he came, at risk of falling into hell worlds of flame. For having stepped into earthly mortal birth, a being may tumble to worlds lower than earth. And in those hell worlds, the chances are slim that one will awaken again. Wherefore, whenever one like the crown prince leaves a heavenly realm to serve in worlds dense, they are carefully watched. Them we do not forsake. Messages are sent that say, sleeper, awake. The song of the dove entered the ears of Noah and moved through his body, reminding him, and then touched his spirit. And he remembered. Yea, the sleeper awoke. Behold, Noah remembered his home in the seventh heaven. He remembered his blessed life as Prince Isaac. He remembered his purpose in coming to this world and the risk of the great sacrifice. And he knew the identity of the dove. My lady Jannah, he said, then climbed to his feet and bowed. Chapter 8, Noah prepares his army. The dove spoke. The time has come, O Noah, to wage war in the name of the Lord and Lady. Yea, this age comes to an end, and a new age begins. Lucifer will be banished from this world by the Lord and Lady, but you must rise an army to fight his minions. Without killing, you must fight. Yea, my Yair, call your army. For lo, you have more friends than you suspect, and the time has come. Noah replied, My lady, I will do as you ask, but you called me Yair, and I am no longer that, for I resigned and gave the pendant to Ezekiel. The dove said, Ezekiel, come forth. Then from behind a tree came forth Ezekiel. He carried in his hand the pendant of the Yair. The dove vanished, and Ezekiel spoke. Behold, after you wore the pendant, I gave it to another, who was worthy but very old. Yesterday she passed from this life. Then the dove appeared and led me to this spot. Lo, she told me that the new Yair would be found here. And so he has been found, for behold, he has found himself. Ezekiel placed the pendant around the neck of Noah. Then, reaching into the bag, Ezekiel pulled out 2 drums. He gave one to Noah and took one for himself. For behold, once again the time had come for the sounding of the Kara HaKodesh, the holy call. Yea, like Abdiel so long ago, Noah sat and drummed. And with his drumming, which was like a heartbeat, Noah and Ezekiel sent forth a call. And those with ears to hear heeded the call. The first to come was a woman of grace and beauty named Shimrith. Her name means guardianess, and she was the leader of the Zeroah Nistar, the hidden arm of the Nasareans. She told Noah and Ezekiel, The hidden arm is stronger than you suspect, and I will counsel with you. The next to come was a surprise to Noah. For after Shimrith, the next to come was the great Peter Hoppen, the legendary defender of animals. As a child, Noah had cherished the tales read to him by Isaiah of the exploits of Peter the Pen. Noah never doubted the truth of those stories from the Holy Megillah, but he never suspected that Peter still roamed the forests of the world, and he certainly did not expect to meet him. Standing behind Peter was an amazing array of creatures. There were recognizable animals such as birds, deer, and squirrel, and there were other creatures that Noah did not recognize. There were forest sprites, water fairies, plant divas, and other creatures left from the original Garden of Eden, even a unicorn. And all were united by the call of Noah. Yea, all had come to pledge their help in the war against the seraphim. Next came three surviving Nazarean lines of Zion: Daniel, Mishael, and Azariah. Ezekiel knew them, being their commander, and introduced them to the assembly. Next came several Nazareans who survived the persecution and heard the Kara HaKodesh. Noah said, "You are those who had ears to hear from a great distance. Now we will move from town to town. Yea, we will drum in the forest outside of each town. We will gather many more this way. Then we will launch our war." Behold, as Noah had declared, many more joined their army, and many encampments were made in the forests of these lands. And lo, these encampments were protected. For behold, the birds of Noah's army served as spies, warning the encampments when seraphim came near. And each encampment was small and mobile, therefore they could be quickly moved. And the birds also served as messengers between the camps. And all the creatures of Noah's army served to the best of their ability. Yea, between them there were many diverse skills, and they were unlike any army ever before assembled. Lo, for 7 years Noah assembled Nazarean armies in many lands. Noah became known as Noah the Baptizer, for he baptized hundreds. Behold, many of those who heeded the call of the drum had been prepared for this day by Isaiah. For lo, he told the people that this day would come, and that they should heed the call of Noah and the drum. And so the public ministry of old Isaiah had not been without fruit. After baptism, the new recruits were trained in Zion in various arts of nonviolent warfare. After 7 years of preparation, Noah perceived that the time had come to launch the war. For behold, the rumblings of the earth had grown greater. Yea, earthquakes, storms, tornadoes, and giant waves, all were signs that the earth could no longer endure the atrocities of the seraphim and their servants. And so Noah fasted and prayed for 40 days and was shown many things by the Lord and Lady. Then he called his chiefs together for final council. He shared with them the message of the Lord and Lady. A plan was agreed on. Then lo, the war was launched. Chapter 9, Noah launches his war. Behold, the Lord and Lady had declared unto Noah that on the morning after the next full moon, they would banish Lucifer from this world. Lucifer and his seraphim would be made to leave this world in their skyship, never to return. But the children they made in this world cannot be banished, for they are native to this world. Wherefore, though the Lord and Lady would deal with Lucifer and the seraphim, Noah and his army must deal with the children of Lucifer and the seraphim, which numbered in the thousands, and the armies commanded by Sargon. Lo, they must be disarmed and disbanded, and their slaves must be freed. Behold, the Lord and Lady warned Noah that the banishment of Lucifer from this world would not prevent his influence in this world. For lo, his physical banishment would not prevent his spiritual influence. Yea, those who choose to have inner contact with Lucifer and do his bidding cannot be prevented. But his physical banishment would limit his intervention in this world enough to preserve the choice. For lo, each being must be free to choose good or evil. And his physical banishment would be enough to preserve the chance. That chance is the possibility that this fallen world might again be raised into the heavenly hierarchy of ascending worlds. But that outcome would be long in the making. For the war of Noah was truly but one battle in a much larger war, a war that will span the history of this world even unto the last days. And though the seraphim would be banished, other species of demons would still roam the earth, some embodied, some disembodied. Yea, knowing all these things, Noah launched his war. He knew that the island of Atalia would be submerged beneath mighty waters, for he had seen that in a vision. Wherefore he knew that the slaves and animals on the island must be saved. And so, before launching the war, he sent Nasarean lions to the island, posing as slaves to prepare the slaves for their rescue. Yea, Daniel, Mishael, and Azariah, Nasarean lions of Zion, let themselves be captured by seraphim slavers. And their story is as follows. Chapter 10, Daniel, Mishael, and Azariah in the lion's cage. Though the seraphim had skyships, they were not used to bring new slaves to the land of Atalia. For that, large wooden ships that sailed on water were used. Noah instructed Ezekiel, the chief of the Nasarean lions, to discover where the next slave ship would land. Yea, and to have 3 Nasarean lions let themselves be captured so as to infiltrate the ranks of the slaves on the island of Atalia. Ezekiel, upon discovering where the next slave ship would land, asked for 3 volunteers from amongst his lions. Behold, Daniel, Mishael, and Azariah, 3 brave lions of Zion, volunteered. Letting themselves be captured by the slavers, they were placed upon a slave ship. But lo, they discovered that they were not to be taken to Atalia, but to another land to work in mines. Wherefore Daniel said to Mishael and Azariah, Behold, if we let it be known that we are Nazareans, the captain of the ship will take us to Atalia to be questioned. For Lucifer will reward him for bringing such a prize. Yea, and will punish him if he does not. For lo, Lucifer gloats over every captured Nazarean. And so when the slavers brought the slaves their daily meal, which was a piece of raw meat, the 3 lions made a show of refusing the meat. Yea, they declared in loud voice, We are Nazareans, we do not eat flesh. And when the captain of the ship was told, he declared, We must take them to Atalia, for such is the will of the Lord God. When they arrived at Atalia, the Nasarean lions were sickened by what they saw. For behold, this island was full of evil doings. The air was foul from dark fumes that burned the eyes. Much of the forest was cut down to make room for huge herds of animals for meat. Terrified slaves toiled at unseemly works. Those who slowed their labor were hung by their feet and butchered for meat to feed the Canaanite cannibals that guarded them. And the Canaanites were under watchful eyes of seraphim soldiers, for no humans, not even Canaanites, were fully trusted. Wherefore, the number of human soldiers on the island was kept to a minimum for fear of a rebellion. And that is also why Lucifer made them into cannibals, for behold, this tightened his control over their weakened minds. The 3 Nasarean lions, Daniel, Mishael, and Azariah, were taken to the castle of mixing called Babel, which was a great evil. At this place, the essence of one creature was mixed with that of another, and loathsome monsters were made. Also, at this place, important prisoners were questioned and tortured, which is why the Nazareans were brought there. As they were marched through the castle, they saw all kinds of evil, sorcery, and wickedness. Yea, and they saw many cages filled with animals, and some with humans. Vile experiments were conducted on some, and others were used for religious sacrifices. The Nazareans were placed in a cage between 2 other cages. In the cage to the right was a lion, and this lion was not of the human, Nazarean kind, but was an animal of the jungle. and in the cage to their left were birds awaiting experimentation. To Daniel's surprise, he knew one of the birds, a colorful talking parrot that often rode on the shoulder of Pen. The bird looked at them knowingly, but said nothing. Lo, though Daniel knew it not, the Nasarean lions were not the first to infiltrate the island of Italia. For behold, the birds of Pen's army had already come. Yea, they had served as spies, bringing messages to Pen, Noah, and Shimrith. And these birds had spread word amongst the animals on the island of the coming battle for their liberation. Yea, and had enlisted many to their cause. For Noah had seen in a vision a part to be played by these animals, and had sent word by the birds. For 7 days, the Nasarean lions refused the meat they were offered, preferring hunger to flesh. Then came Lucifer to gloat over his hungry prisoners. Lucifer had no idea that a major rebellion was in the making. Neither had he any knowledge that he was about to be banished from this world. But he wanted to obtain information from these Nazareans on the whereabouts of Nasarean encampments. Yea, and he wanted to know the total number of Nazareans that had yet survived. For with this information, he could hurry their extermination. Behold, Lucifer questioned the Nazareans, but received no information. Instead, when he asked them questions, they responded by quoting passages from Nazarean scripture. When the 3 lions refused to give Lucifer their names, he said, I will give you new names as I do all my slaves. To Daniel, he gave the name Shadrach, which means servant of Aku, for Aku was the seraphim in charge of training slaves. Lucifer mocked Daniel, saying, Aku will teach you good manners. To Mishael, he gave the name Meshach, which means I am weak. For lo, this was Lucifer's way of mocking Mishael. For Mishael was a huge man, the strongest of the Nazareans. Lucifer told him, you who were once strong have become weak and powerless in my cage. To Azariah, he gave the name Abednego, which means servant of Nebo. And this was Lucifer's way of mocking Azariah. For since caged in this castle, Azariah had been very vocal in refusing the daily meat. Whereas Daniel and Mishael silently refused to eat the meat, Azariah had delivered a discourse to the guards on the evils of eating flesh. Nebo was the seraphim in charge of animal sacrifice in the temple on Italia. Lucifer mocks Azariah, saying, you will become the servant of Nebo. Yea, you will learn the joy of animal sacrifice. Then Lucifer ordered that the 3 Nazareans be beaten that they might answer his questions. After they were beaten and still did not answer his questions, he ordered that they be tortured with staffs of fire. After they were tortured and still did not answer his questions, Lucifer became enraged. He shouted, do you see that lion in the cage next to you? We have kept it hungry, not feeding it for days. If you will not answer my questions, you will be thrown into the lion's den. When the 3 Nazareans still refused to answer his questions, Lucifer screamed, give them to the lion. The 3 Nazareans were put into the cage of the hungry lion. When the lion did not immediately begin to kill and eat them, Lucifer told the guards, send word to me when the lion begins to eat them. Then he stormed out of the room. But the lion did not eat them, for behold, the talking parrot, who often rode the shoulder of Pen, had spoken to the lion. Yea, the lion knew that these Nazareans were enemies of his captors, and that they had come to free the animals of Italia. The parrot began talking to the guards, saying, do you have a wife? I would make a great gift for your wife. Save me from these experiments, and take me as a gift for your wife. The guard considered this, then said, a talking bird would be a good gift for my wife. I will take you home tonight. That night, when the guard took the parrot from the cage and carried him outside the castle, the parrot escaped. The next day, seeing that the lion had not eaten the Nazareans, Lucifer said, let's see if a few weeks of slave labor will loosen their tongues. And so it was that Daniel, Mishael, and Azariah were taken to the field where the slaves slept. For lo, the slaves did not have homes, but slept in a field surrounded by a fence. Behold, the Nasarean lions had succeeded in their mission, for they were now amongst the slaves and began to spread word of the coming liberation. Yea, and by birds they sent messages to Noah and received messages from Noah. A plan was made to rescue the animals and slaves from Italia, for the island would be submerged beneath mighty waters. Chapter 11, we're almost done. Thanks for everyone hanging out there. We only got a few more, but this is like where it's getting really exciting. So, Noah's Ark. On the day before the banishment of Lucifer from this world, Noah, Ezekiel, and Pen led an army of Nasarean lions and animals in the capture of 7 slave ships. Shimrith, the woman who led the Zeroa Nistar, the hidden arm of the Nazareans, provided information on the arrival of 7 slave ships on 7 shores. Noah hid armies of animals and Nazarean soldiers trained in Zion in the forest near each of the 7 shores. Large elephants charged the ships, and other animals created havoc, while Nazareans tackled and disarmed the slavers. Though Nasarean lions had trained for 7 years in the use of the wooden staff to disarm those with weapons, and that training bore fruit. Yea, the slavers were disarmed, and the Nasareans took over the ships. A crew was selected for each of the 7 ships, and aboard each ship were other crews that would take over other slave ships at Italia. For behold, the plan was to sail to Italia in these 7 ships, then capture more ships to rescue the slaves and animals. Yea, the slaves and animals would be loaded on the ships, and then the ships would depart the island before submerged beneath the waters, as Noah had seen in vision. Behold, Noah was the captain of the lead ship, and when he chose his crew, he selected not only humans, but also animals. For Noah declared, "The animals have helped us capture these ships, and they will help us take the island." Lo, Noah selected one of each kind of animal, that each species would be part of the battle. Yea, Noah said, "Each species has suffered at the hands of the seraphim, and each will have a hand in their overthrow." And Noah selected an equal number of males and females for his crew, saying, "Likewise, both the male and female have suffered at the hands of Lucifer, and each shall have a hand in his overthrow." Wherefore did Noah's ark have a most unusual crew. Chapter 12, the banishment of Lucifer from this world. The 7 ships departed for Italia so as to arrive at dawn. Behold, just as they arrived at the port, the Lord and Lady appeared in the sky above Italia. Yea, and their voices filled the sky as they declared, "Children of earth, the time of the banishment of the false god Lucifer has come." Then, behold, all of the seraphim were transported from their beds or wherever they stood, and were instantly within their sky ships. And this was not their doing, but the doing of the Lord and Lady. And when the sky ships were hurled into space far from earth, and again, this was not the doing of the seraphim, but the doing of the Lord and Lady. Yea, Lucifer and his seraphim were banished from this world, and it happened in the blink of an eye. Sounds like the rapture, doesn't it? And lo, this happened not just at Italia, but all over the world. Yea, wherever there were seraphim on this world, they were cast away into space. Behold, the laws of intervention limit this kind of intercession by the Lord and Lady. But Lucifer crossed the line of what will be permitted on this world. And if he or others again cross that line, again the Lord and Lady will intervene. For thus they have declared, and their word is true. Amen. When the seraphim suddenly vanished, the Canaanite soldiers were thrown into disarray. Then, as the Nazarean ships arrived in the port, the animals on the island of Italia began their part in the war. Yea, the animals charged the fences that kept the human slaves captive and trampled the fences underfoot. With cries of freedom, the slaves charged the port. According to the plan of Noah that had been sent to Daniel, Mishael, and Azariah by birds, some of the slaves came on board the 7 Nazarean ships. The other slaves and the animals of Italia boarded the other slave ships in the port. A few of the Canaanite soldiers surrendered and were permitted on the ships, but most ran into the night. When all of the animals and slaves were safely aboard, the ships departed. For behold, already a great storm had begun, And Noah knew that this storm would ravage the island of Atalia. Yea, for the mother earth would wash herself clean of the seraphim filth. Lo, Noah led his fleet to safety. Soon after they landed on the mainland, they felt great rumblings beneath their feet. Behold, the earthquake they felt was centered on the island of Italia. Yea, the island was submerged beneath the sea, and the castle of mixing was destroyed. Though the influence of Lucifer remained in this world, for his children remained, and he has many willing servants, the departure of the seraphim prevented this world from becoming entirely his. Lo, it is now a contested world, and the intervention of Satan will be equally met by the intervention of the Lord and Lady. Wherefore, each soul will be free to choose good or evil, for that is the will of Jaja and Elohim. Under the guidance of Noah, the world enjoyed a time of relative peace. Some nations still warred, but the constant warfare and mayhem of the past was lessened, and cannibalism was mostly ended. Things were not perfect, but much better than before. The Nasarean religion, for the remainder of the life of Noah, could be practiced openly without arrest. He married Shimrith, and they had a son named Shimshon. When Shimshon was 20 years of age, Noah left his body, for his work on earth was done. Final, chapter 13, the ascension of Noah with the pearl. Behold, on the night that Noah passed from this world, he took off his earthly robe of flesh and ascended to the temple of light within the sun. There, the prince of the cherubim was greeted by his father, King Abraham, and his mother, Queen Sarah. They gave to him his robe of light, the cherubim body he had left behind long ago. Abraham asked him, Isaac, did you find your lost pearl? Prince Isaac replied, Yes, father, I found the pearl of peace. When I remembered myself and performed my mission of mercy, then I found the pearl. Yea, I found it within myself. Abraham and Sarah smiled. After a time of refreshment in the temple of light, Isaac went to El Cush to serve as the angel of water of the tree of life for our world. And though he will serve in that capacity unto the end of this world, he will enjoy visits with Abraham and Sarah. For lo, all of the cherubim are free to visit their loved ones in other heavens, and their loved ones may visit them. For such is the will of the Lord and Lady. Little bit longer today, but I really love some of those. Well, I mean, I love the whole story in general, but some of those chunks in there, especially talking about the great sacrifice and how we can stumble and forget who we are and why we came. All of these different teachings that are so prevalent in there are relevant to us. And yeah, I hope that you got some pearls of wisdom from that yourself. Hello, everybody in the live chat. David says, please, God and Goddess, help us to destroy the master brain that lies under Mount Shasta and create a garden paradise on earth. Yeah, maybe on Wednesday we can talk about the master brain. My eyes are like blinding light. Maybe on Wednesday we could talk about the master brain and it being under Mount Shasta and some of the other things that go along with that and the prophecies that are involved with that. Tried says, are you living healthily? Well, I'm definitely trying. Easier said than done. David D says, Satan mated with many races in order that the serpent seed will be of every race, but they are not human. They don't have, well, it's also interesting that they talk in there about that he basically collected his seed and like saved it, right? So that he could later come in and impregnate women while he wasn't physically there any longer. Really interesting. And then at one point they also were saying, what was the exact wording? Like encoded or something to that extent. Like the egg was encoded with the messages of another, but just this, DNA genetic engineering type stuff that they were messing with. And like it's kind of common knowledge in the truther community about the giants and even hybrids and other creatures that came from all of that. So anyways, back to what David D says, they are not human, don't have human AB plus blood markers. They are 0, negative, or null. Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about blood types a little bit more in detail on Wednesday as well, so that we can get into, a more detailed discussion on these things. Um, yeah. So let's say I'll just address the blood type thing on Wednesday. Hey, Kyle, how's it going? Kyle says, hey. How's it going, everybody? David says, we have all taken a risk entering this world, the risk that we would not wake up to our soul's true will and slide into corruption and darkness. Absolutely. Hey, artist, how's it going? David, he says that Satan's end goal is cannibalism. Eating animal flesh is the gateway to eating human flesh. Absolutely. And how many people already know about, I know it starts with an S, but I don't, something, anyways, human, DNA, essentially aborted baby stuff being found in natural flavorings, and the tiny hat rabbis talking about how they put aborted babies in McDonald's burgers and stuff like that. These are the types of ways that they tell us what's going on, and then people just pass it off as crazy. But human DNA has been found in multiple different labs when they test McDonald's meat. So yeah. Hello, Strider Winds. How's it going? Hello, Elena. Hi, Queen Anana. For once, my timing is good. First live I've ever caught. Oh, cool. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the story. I really love how different the stories are in this book, and getting to talk about it and share it with you. Hey, Maddie Rice, how's it going? David D says that dragons, fairies, even unicorns, all these mythical creatures all exist, while all their dinosaurs are 100% deception, right? Yeah, dinosaurs being a cover up for dragons and all that. Um, cool. Artist says that he has a book that was from 1660, and it has dragons and unicorns in it as well. That's cool. Hey, Love Kung Fu, how's it going? Hey Dave, how's it going? Such a cooler story than the mainstream, and tying in the lines. Then all of it makes more sense than the empty, disconnected mainstream Bible stories. Absolutely. And when it was like Peter Hoppen brought this army of animals, like how stinking cool would that be? Like you heard of these stories growing up about Peter Hoppen in the forest. He had these antlers that were given from a deer that was being hunted, and the deer said, please, this guy wants to take my head and put it on a wall, like, please just take my antlers. And Peter fashioned a little headpiece thing with it, and would go around in the forest messing with hunters, and in throwing rocks into the water so that fish would disperse from the fishermen, doing really cool stuff. And how cool that he was the one that like brought these animals to Noah. And the story is really cool too, because it's just so much different than what we're taught in the mainstream story. So I definitely agree, Dave. And artist also says, great reading of the story of Noah. Thanks. Kyle says symbiote. No, it's a company, I think. It actually might not be it. I thought Cinemex. Is that what it's called? That'd be really funny if that was like what it was like. It might be. So Senomyx. Aren't these the ones that do the natural flavoring, and they are rumored to were food companies caught using aborted babies in flavor additives? It's true. A company based out of California known as Cenomix is in the business of using aborted embryonic cells to test fake flavoring chemicals. Well, interesting. What was I saying? Ah, to Oh, okay. Sorry. The internet was showing me something that they were just quoting from something else. So, anyways, Cinemax is what I was talking about. And then the human embryonic kidney 293 cells, HEK. Um, so, yeah. Anyways, there's a reason that they get us to use this word fetus. It not only, emotionally detaches you from the baby, but it's feed us. Do you hear the word feed us? That's what these crazy souls are into. So David D says, what are you up to today? That is a good question. I'm not 100% sure what I'm up to today yet. I don't know. I'm going to enjoy my day. I do plan on that. But I otherwise don't really know. Yesterday, I got to have a really cool conversation with a friend and her husband and her mom about the Megillah and plant all sorts of seeds. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about all the stuff that this is doing. I have some other plans of making like maybe like a cliff note type thing for the Megillah for people that they can kind of just look and see, get a little gist of it. And probably doing some other media design with that. So that being said, I'm going to get off of here and go figure out what I'm doing with my life today. And I will catch up with you tomorrow for the noontime peace contemplation. I hope that you have a wonderful day. May God and the Goddess bless you.
I can hear the sacred heartbeat, like the pulsing of the drum. And although I've now ascended to this hill